This fall, bring the beauty of the Rabbit Room into your own community with Housemoot. It's a self-hosted gathering where your living room, church, or backyard becomes a place for shared stories, songs, and sacred conversations. With recorded sessions, recipes, activities, discussion questions, and a gathering guide, we'll set the table for you. All you have to do is bring the guests. Get everything you need to host your own Housemoot at rabbitroom.com/housemoot.
You know, I find more and more that, especially in this day and age, we operate out of a mindset of scarcity. But God is a God of infinite abundance. And so there's always room for more goodness, always more room for more truth and beauty. And so when I think about even like the creative arts, like the world can always use more good art.
Welcome to the Habit Podcast, conversations with writers about writing. I'm Jonathan Rogers, your host. Karen Swallow Prior is a public intellectual, a writer, speaker, and literature teacher. Her work centers on the intersection of faith narrative and cultural life. Her Substack, The Priory, is devoted to the holy cultivation of a rich inner life. Her new book is You Have a Calling, Finding Your Vocation in the True, Good, and Beautiful. In this episode, Dr. Prior and I talk about following your passion. She has her doubts about that advice. Knowing your limitations. She doesn't think you can be anything you want to be. And listening for your calling. She doesn't think it has to be all that mystical. Karen Swallow Prior, I'm so glad to have you back on the Habit Podcast.
I'm so glad to be back. It's been too long. The time goes by fast.
So you have a new book coming out, I think the same week that this episode is going to release. You Have a Calling, Finding Your Vocation in the True, Good, and Beautiful. What possessed you to write a book about calling?
Well, there are two things really. Three things. I did a workshop at a Rabbit Room on the Road event on being called to create, and it was a talk that went well. I gave it a few other times, and it kind of grew into a talk that was about calling more broadly. And as I developed that idea, I realized how many years I had spent advising students about calling and vocation and how distorted their expectations are because of kind of the culture we're in. And then lo and behold, I was going through my own sort of shift and reexamination of calling in my life. And so I just kind of brought all those three strands together and wrote this book.
Yeah. You're pretty suspicious of the follow your passion advice.
I absolutely am. And I was so gratified that when I sat down and started researching for this book, my suspicion was supported by research, which I cited in the book. And, you know, I ended up spending a whole chapter talking about passion itself, because passion is good. But it can misdirect us. I think the biggest myth that I wanted to bash in this book is the expectation that pursuing our passion will translate into getting a lot of money with my job. Because we should pursue our passions in our lives, but doesn't always mean in our work life, and it doesn't always mean that we're going to get paid a lot to do it. And so for me, a lot of this book is sort of separating out the categories so that we can examine them and see how they might sometimes overlap, but most likely won't overlap. And the other important point that I found in my research, specifically from Cal Newport, who does a lot of this research, is that we can actually develop, our passion will grow as we do something longer and get better at it and feel more confidence and competence. So it's actually, he argues, is actually the opposite, that our passion follows our work and our competence.
Well, it's nice to be competent, and
it is.
It feels good to be competent.
Yeah, right.
That grows your
your
interest in the thing you're competent at. I found it very helpful to reframe the idea of passion. As you say, it derives from the same word as suffering. Is it possible that, a good working definition of a passion is something you're willing to suffer for?
I think that's a great definition. I mean, or even just, sometimes we suffer even unwillingly. I think of, the stereotype of the tortured artist
Yeah.
who suffer so much. And, I've often quipped, and but I think it's true. Like, I'll probably never be a great artist because I don't suffer that much and I don't want to suffer that much.
Yeah, right.
And so in some ways, if we think of them, I mean, do we really want to be like them? They can be tortured souls and writing out of their pain, and they produce great art that is a gift to the world, but it's not necessarily something that most of us would want. And so, or it could be, as you said, something that we will willingly suffer for. And so we give up, we sacrifice in order to pursue this thing. And that's the thing that's lost when we think of the follow your passion. Like, if you follow your passion, it may mean that you don't get paid a lot of money to do it. And so you will suffer. And so again, we have to parse out those terms and understand what they mean.
Yeah. There's a country song, Turnpike Troubadours. They say, they all want to be Hank Williams. They don't want to have to die.
I could have put that in the book. That yes.
Yeah. Or for that matter, I remember somebody was talking about Ben Shive, a musician around here, and I guess Andrew Peterson was talking about that people will see Ben Shive do his thing and say, "Boy, I wish I could just sit down and play the way Ben Shive does." And Andrew's like, "Yeah, so does Ben Shive wishes he could just sit down and play. Ben had to work really, really hard to be that good at that."
Right. Yeah, we often look at people who do things well, and it looks so much easier. We miss all of the blood, sweat, and tears and hours behind it, and that's what it takes.
We're always comparing our first draft to somebody else's final draft.
Right. And yeah.
I thought this was really interesting. You said, be careful about placing your identity in your passions. Tell me more about that. What's the danger of placing your identity in your passions?
Yeah, there's a lot of danger. One example that I mentioned is just that, our passions can change over the course of our lives. We can really enjoy and be passionate about one particular thing, and then, and life takes over, or things change. And so what do we do if we've put our identity in that thing? But the other thing is that, again, going back to what I said earlier, we just may not always be able to fulfill our passions. And if our identity is in that, then we are, losing our identity. And so again, to just say, I'm passionate about this, I love this, is wonderful, and to pursue something with realistic expectations, but to assume that our whole lives will always be wrapped up in that, or our identity, is just an error, because things can change so much over the course of a life, and that's okay. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also worth, and you make this point in your book, it's worth noting that our passions don't necessarily, they feel like they're coming from inside us, but they're externally formed more than we realize.
Yes.
When I was in junior high, from the depths of my heart, I wanted Nike tennis shoes. And I thought that was, it didn't occur to me that it was because of, advertising that I desperately wanted Nike tennis shoes.
No, we are so culturally formed. And of course, that's a longer term project of mine that I write about in the evangelical imagination. And I've been heavily influenced by writers like James K.A. Smith, and a lot, our desires are formed a great deal by our practices and habits, which are formed oftentimes by these outside forces. And it's something as basic as advertising, as you point out, and just think of all the people who existed in human history who don't have no idea what a Nike sneaker is, and so they never had a passion for it. So
yeah. Well, maybe this is a good time to segue to the idea that if passions are internal, or at least they feel internal, calling is external. Calling comes from outside us,
right.
Which is easy when you think about what the word really means. Of course, to be called that is that's a past participle. It's
right.
It's passive to be called.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Calling is external. Yeah.
That idea, that concept was one of the driving forces behind the book. Because we'll often hear people say something like, I feel called to, and whatever it might be. And sometimes it's just semantics, but even just the way we use words can can form our thoughts and our logic. And so if we don't understand that calling is literally something that comes from outside of ourselves and not the thing that we feel inside, the passion and the desire, then we can just begin to assume that just because we feel we want to do something or feel passionate about something, that we will get called to do it. And it's wonderful when that is the case, but it often isn't the case. And so we need to have a more realistic expectation, but also just an understanding of the two categories, that I may be passionate about something, I may desire something, I may want something to do something with my life, but I still have to wait to get the call. I still have to wait to be asked, to be hired, to be interviewed, to have someone else say, yes, you can do this thing. Even in the terms of an artist or someone who's self-employed, you still have to have the people who want to buy, purchase, support what you're offering in order for that to be a calling.
So you seem to be, to what extent are you demystifying? I mean, is there still, I assume you allow for the possibility of a divine calling that's distinct from an audience or a.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, I almost think that they might not even be that distinct, because I believe that God uses people, an audience, our skills, our gifts, our talents, our passions, these things we've talked about, and even our own, to go back to your Nike example, even our circumstances, which he sovereignly places us into. So you couldn't have desired Nike sneakers if God sovereignly designed you to be born 200 years ago. And so much of what we can do, want to do, desire to do, is part of our time and place where we are. And so that's all divinely ordained by God. He uses people. Now there's a wide range of options and opportunities and choices and possibilities in that. But he still uses the world around us and the people around us to make that call, to help us hear that call, and to help us fulfill that call.
Well, maybe I think what you're saying there, Karen, is relevant to something else you say. The doctrine of vocation is a robust acknowledgement of the truth that God intended human beings to provide for each other through each other's work. And so again, the language of calling and vocation is easily spiritualized, and yet you're being as practical as, no, this is just the way we take care of each other.
Yes, exactly. And of course, just to be clear, I didn't come up with that idea. That comes straight from the Protestant reformers, including Luther. But it's just something that, especially in contemporary evangelicalism, we have over spiritualized things. And so our calling, the person who delivers the gas to the gas station so we can fuel our cars every week is fulfilling a great need in our world. And that may be a calling for that person. It may be just a job for that person, but God uses that to serve a need in the world. And he uses all of the things that we can do, not just our paying jobs, but even our roles in our relationships with family and friends, and our roles as citizens and neighbors. These are all callings, and they are all part of how God designed us to serve our neighbors in the world and for them to serve us.
Yeah. I ran across a book by a person named Elaine T. Cherry. It's a book called God and the Art of Happiness. I was actually looking for hospitality books, but the happiness books are right next to it. So that's how I ended up reading this book. And she talks about the idea that our limited participation in God's creativity, intelligence, goodness, it brings things to their flourishing, people and things. But I think it's interesting the way she talks about inanimate things. Through our work, we bring them to their flourishing, and in so doing, we increase the amount of goodness in the world. And she says we transmit God's creative goodness to the things on which we act for their gainful use, and that goodness is transmitted to the people who use and enjoy those things. And I love that language, that way of talking about the multiplication of goodness as we pursue our callings and as we pursue our work.
I love that because one of the, I find more and more that, especially in this day and age, we operate out of a mindset of scarcity. And of course, there are limits to, to the earth. There are limits to material things. There are limits to our own income and our own capacity. But God is a God of infinite abundance. And so there's always room for more goodness, always more room for more truth and beauty. And so when I think about even like the creative arts, which you and I are both involved in, like the world can always use more good art. Now, in terms of market and saturation in particular, there may not be, money for to support, too many of a certain kind. Those are realities, and yet we can still be called to produce goodness and beauty in the work that we do. And so that's a calling, whether we get paid well for it or not.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely want to make sure we spend some time with truth, goodness, and beauty. But before we get there, I want to talk about your critique of the idea that anybody that I can be anything I want to be. That hurt my feelings when you said I can't be anything I want to be.
Yeah, that is definitely one of the points that I drew from my countless conversations with young people over the years. And many people have been brought up in a world in which only their limitations were pointed out to them and only the lack of opportunity. So I understand that idea, you can do anything, is a counter to that. But again, it needs to be brought into balance. And so there are certain realities about our own gifts and talents and passions and willingness to put in the work. And so no one can do everything. And again, that goes back to the way that God designed us, the way he put us into the world, but also just even our own skills and abilities. And so if we have our eye on something that realistically we just aren't going to be able to do or do well, then we're not only wrongly directed in that way, but we're also less able to see what it is that we can and should do and are equipped to do. And so it's a double loss when we have that lie put in front of us that we can do anything.
Well, after reading your book, I'm thinking about giving up my dream to be a professional basketball player. So,
you would do better than I.
You remarked somewhere, the idea that because we have so many we do have more choices than say a peasant in the 1400s,
right?
And that extra choice we have causes a different set of anxieties than I might have if I were, a subsistence farmer in another century. And in the same way, the sense that I can do anything or almost anything. And by the way, you said you can't do everything. You also can't do just anything.
Right.
But those limits, those are a gift too. Flannery O'Connor said, you can choose, a writer can choose what he writes about, but he can't choose what he's able to make live. And, the positive way of framing that is find out what you can make live and then make that.
Right.
Or, she also said, figure out what you're able to make. No, I'm sorry. Possibility and limitation mean about the same thing. Which I love that idea, that reframing of our limits. That's just a clue as to what the world might need from us, is what I can actually do.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like a funnel, right? A funnel is drawn around us and has limits, but points us in the right direction if we're willing to go through it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, your subtitle here is Finding Your Vocation in the True, the Good, and Beautiful. So I want to know what you mean, or actually I read the book, so I do know, but I'm pretending. Talk to me about what it means to pursue your calling. You say it's not possible to pursue your calling without pursuing truth, goodness, and beauty. So what do you mean by that? How can I pursue my calling without pursuing those things?
So I think the first half of the book, as you've already kind of made clear, is kind of practical and just like look at your gifts and abilities and what you can do, what you can't do, your circumstances, the time and place in which you live. And yet, amidst that sort of practical understanding, there's also this transcendence to calling that I try to break down into these three things that also are, they're sort of abstract and ethereal. Yet, my argument is that if we are pursuing what is true, good, and beautiful in all that we do and in our ordinary everyday lives, we will find our calling. But we also are already fulfilling our calling along the way, which is really the only way to find it.
Yeah, I love it. All right, well, let's walk through them one at a time. Pursuing truth. What does that mean in this context?
Yeah, and again, I try to take something that's sort of ethereal and abstract and universal and make it concrete. And there are lots of ways we talk about truth and moral truth and absolute truth. But what I'm really trying to apply in the area of calling and vocation is, for example, how we have to know the truth about the work. We have to know what it's like. We have to know what's involved. Like the musician that you used as an example earlier, who, the truth is that he can only do this well because that particular craft requires, X amount of work and practice and skills. So we need to know the truth about the work. And we also need to know the truth about ourselves, our own skills and abilities and so forth. I mean, somewhere, I don't know if it was in this chapter or another one in the book where I give the example of how as an English major, I was trying to be practical. And so I decided I would do an internship at a marketing agency because I thought, well, I could do that and this would support myself. And I just discovered there that I hated the work. I hated the environment. I wasn't good at it. And so I wasn't going to do that. So there goes one option off the table, which helped me to find what I think was my true vocation and teaching, which I had resisted all my life. And so learning the truth, like that was such a valuable experience to me because the idea I had in my head about what marketing might look like was very different from the reality, and that just didn't fit me well. And so there are practical ways that we can think about the truth in work and vocation. Of course, then there's the more obvious ways like having integrity and doing good work well, which is, I do a lot of citation of Dorothy Sayers in these chapters because you can't do better than Dorothy Sayers than talking about work.
Yeah. Well, okay. So as you say, truth has, among other things, has a lot to do with understanding, as you said, yourself, and aligning your work with the truth of who you are. Goodness. How's goodness distinct from truth? That's
well, the quote that you gave earlier just illuminates that so well from Elaine Chari. And I kind of approach goodness as truth made manifest. So if something is true, then its goodness will be apparent. And so there's an expression that we use in a variety of contexts that's just, we say, well, what good is it? Right. And so we might be talking about a thing, or we might be talking about a concept. And that the answer to that question, what good is it, is what goodness is. It shows the truth of something. And if we can't see the goodness of something, then either that it's not true or we don't understand truth. And so the way that we do our work, what our work is, it should be, as Dorothy Sayers says again, good work done well. And she says that in the context of Christianity. We always want to over spiritualize it. And she says, the first work of, a carpenter should be that he makes good tables. That's what makes him a Christian carpenter, is doing good work. And good, I love the word good because, it nuances excellent or outstanding. Now, I do believe in excellence, and I love to be outstanding. I want to be outstanding. But oftentimes, especially the perfectionists out there, they can become stifled and paralyzed because if something isn't perfect, then it's not going to get done. But first of all, nothing will be perfect. As a writer, believe me, I know it's not done until the due date is due, and then it goes in. But so goodness is just such a wonderful goal to have in mind. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's wonderful if it's excellent. I'm definitely somebody who always wanted to be the A student. But good is good enough. I mean, that's how God describes his creation, good and then very good. And so having the idea of goodness in front of us, I think it draws us out. It draws us higher, but it also isn't completely unrealistic. It's a noble goal.
Yeah. I think it was Cal Newport you were getting this distinction from, and maybe he got it from somebody else, but a craftsman mindset versus a passion mindset.
Yeah. So again,
that was in the goodness section.
Yes, because, and again, I had earlier hopefully showed how following your passion is not the best route to go. But when you do pursue good work and pursue doing it well through a craftsman mindset, as he calls it, that getting better at it, putting in the time and the practice and the energy to get better at it, then you're going to do good work. And then as his research shows, you're likely to grow passionate about it. And so rather than pursuing the thing that you want to do, doing the thing in front of you well is the craftsman mindset, and contributes more goodness to the world and more goodness to yourself. And to go back to the example of the medieval peasant, they didn't have much choice in what they could do, but they had a choice in how to do it. We do have the choices, and I'm thankful for that. But the more important choice is how we go about doing it and making sure we do it well.
Yeah. And I appreciate you pointed out that goodness is both an end and a means.
Exactly.
That the end result is good, but you get there by
being good, doing it well. Yes.
Yeah. Good. And then beauty. It's not immediately. I think it's easier to see what truth and goodness have to do with pursuing one's calling than beauty, perhaps.
Yeah.
At least we normally talk about beauty. So.
Yeah, and I really, because of that, I really try to talk about beauty, which is a very abstract thing, very hard. I teach a whole graduate course on aesthetics, and so it's very deep, and yet there are ways we can think about it in practical terms, which I try to draw out. But the first thing that I say about beauty that's helpful to understand is just by its very nature, beauty draws us. It draws us to itself. And of course, because God is the source of beauty, then we're actually being drawn to God. So beauty is attractive and appealing, and it draws us. And not just physical beauty. Physical beauty does, but also the beauty of a good soul, the beauty of a job that's well done, good work. The beauty of a good neighbor and a good friend. Those are things that draw us. And so if we try to break down what beauty is, I hope that this works. I just went to Aquinas, who gives sort of the most famous definition of the objective qualities of beauty, just trying to sort of formalize something very abstract. And he famously says, and it's helpful to think about paintings, for example, that beauty displays integrity, proportion, and luminosity. So you can think of a painting like the one behind you is a helpful example. It's beautiful, it's proportionate, and it uses light in remarkable ways. And if we apply those sort of abstract, transcendental qualities to the practical realm of work, we can take integrity and say, all right, that has to do with honesty, but it also has to do with wholeness, like bringing our whole selves to
Hmm.
the work that we
Hmm.
do and not having like a secret private life that ends up on the Kiss Cam at the Coldplay concert,
Oh, no.
right? Not a lot of integrity there. Like, so your work life and your home life and your family life should be integrated in such a way that you're that same person wherever you
Yeah.
are. And that you're bringing integrity to the work again by recognizing the reality and the nature of the work and
Mhm.
yourself. And proportion means, giving the attention due that is required at the time, whether to the job itself or to the rest of your life. Like sometimes we have to focus more attention on work, and sometimes we have to step back and maybe focus attention on family needs. That's all part of
Mhm. Mhm.
proportion. But my favorite part of talking about beauty in this realm is Aquinas's notion of luminosity and applying that to work, because luminosity is a way, it's just talking about bringing light. And
Mhm.
there's so many ways that all of our work can bring light and illumination to the world. And my favorite example when I think about this, well, there are a couple, but it's just like this one clerk at my local grocery store who is so happy and chatty and cheerful and friendly when she cashes groceries out, that she's a delight. Like she makes
Mhm.
it delightful to do something that I hate to do, which is to go grocery shopping. So in her calling, she brings light to the world. And I think of my favorite, our local weatherman, who just loves the weather and loves giving updates, not just on when the news comes on, but on his Facebook page. We get updates all day long, and he loves to explain things. It's like he's teaching, Jane Eyre or something, the way he explains it. And so he brings light to the world. And if we think of ourselves as bringing light to the world in the work we do and the way we do it, then we are actually we're actually contributing beauty to the world and pursuing beauty ourselves.
Yeah. I love the idea that beauty attracts. I mean, we use the word attractive sort of loosely, but it
Right.
really means that you're
Right.
drawn
You're
toward a thing, and it's the of the three transcendentals, of goodness, truth, and beauty, that it's the one that doesn't it doesn't feel like it's requiring something of me. Truth
Mhm.
and goodness require me to conform in some ways, and
Sure.
beauty just kind of draws me in
It
and
calls,
calls me
yes.
along,
Yeah.
and I love it. And you comment, I think you comment that there's something very human about being attracted to beauty. A lion can't see it, a lion can see that
Right,
a
right.
gazelle is delicious,
Mhm.
that it looks delicious, but not that it looks beautiful.
Right, right. I
Yeah.
mean, I do believe that our ability to see, recognize, and appreciate beauty is it's an element of being made in God's image.
Yeah.
Because the male peacock has the spots and the feathers to attract the female, but that happens on, a physiological, biological level, not an aesthetic level. Like the female peacock doesn't go, "Oh, that's beautiful." It's just more something
Yeah.
instinctive.
Yeah.
When, in my younger days when I had horses and I would gallop across the field and I would into the sunset, and I was enjoying the sunset, but my horse was just trying to get home to the
Yeah.
grain,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Although I think my dog thinks I'm handsome.
Well, you can go. I'm sure he does. This is an exception to the rule. We'll just go with that.
Um, can we talk for a minute about the idea of helping others hear their call?
Oh, that
And
is,
as a
yeah.
college professor with students coming into your office, you had
Right,
lots of
right,
opportunities for
right.
that kind of thing. What about the rest of us?
We all have that opportunity, and it doesn't even have to be like a formal, like I have an office and someone comes to see me. But I believe that we are all called to help each other find our callings, and that's not that's not just giving job advice and vocational
Yeah.
mentorship. It's really calling out in people what they are good at doing, or how they do something in a particularly significant or unique way from other people, because often we don't see those things in ourselves. We don't
Sure.
realize that we're really good at something that other people aren't. And so just encouraging one another in that realm. And if you are a person who is sort of trying to figure out what your calling is, and you don't have people in your life who are necessarily doing that, go out of your way, go to people and ask, like, what do you think that I'm good at, that it stands out to you? So we need to be part of communities that are doing that. And there are many ways to help one another. And some of the most significant turning points in my life have come from people, pastors, parents, others, like naming things in me or about me that I would never have seen in myself without that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love the story you told about your, you came, this close to getting mixed up with online education at your university, and your, I guess it was your department head rescued you from that. Would you tell that story? I love that story.
Oh, yeah. So I was a young, new professor doing well and beloved by students and loving the classroom. And this was about the time when online education was taking off. And my employer at that time was a leader in online education. I didn't know anything about it. And the dean, I think probably just because I was young, and if you're young, you theoretically know technology better, but that's definitely not true of me. So he calls me in and wants me to get involved in developing and implementing online education. And I was young, and I was compliant, and my dean was
might have been honored.
Might have been honored. My dean was a very nice person, and I respected him, and so I didn't think of myself as having much of a choice, and so I said I would. And then my department head, who was above me, below the dean, I told him about it, and he just said, "No, Karen, you would hate that." And he literally went into the dean's office and said, "Karen's not doing that." And the thing is that if I was honored, it was an undue honor because they just found someone else. It didn't matter who did it.
Yeah.
And that person has now devoted his life to online education, and he seems happy.
Yeah.
And so, yes, we can have roles like that in helping someone say no, perhaps, to something that they don't see they need to say no to.
Yeah. No, I love that insight. I mean, I knew about affirming people,
Right.
but it's also,
Yes.
are you sure you want to do that?
Exactly. That's an important role to play. Sometimes it's the more important one.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. My next to last question for you. Forgive me for skipping to the end of the book and giving a spoiler, but you say, what is our vocation but an answer to the universal call to match our surroundings to ourselves and ourselves to our surroundings? Would you tell me just a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So this is, again, my last chapter, which is my favorite, and everything in the book, I hope, is culminating toward this idea of the beautiful. And so that idea of fittedness is something I take from Roger Scruton's book, Beauty. And he has a chapter or section where he talks about fittedness, and he talks about how, the way that a door fits the door jamb well is a kind of beauty, and the way, that we might set the table and the plates and the silverware and the cups, they all fit in a certain place. And so there's a subjectivity and an objectivity that interplay there. Like there's this object, and it has objective qualities, and then there's us, and we either fit well or we don't. And beauty is when things fit together. And the example that I cite, again, not to give it away, but it's hopefully people will read the book anyway. An account on X, that's a men's fashion menswear account.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's just fun to follow.
I love that guy. I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And so he'll talk about, he'll post pictures about, does this suit look good on this guy or not good? And he tends to be more in the negative, like it doesn't and why it doesn't. And, he'll talk about color and fit and material, all these different things. But the main thing seems to come down most often to fit. And so like he'll show a picture of the same suit on one person and it doesn't look good. And then on another person and it looks beautiful because of the fit. And that's what I think vocation and calling and beauty itself come down to, is the fitness, and whether it's a good fit. And that's what we're all looking for in pursuing our callings.
Yeah. Can I say one more thing about the men's fashion guy on?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't have known to put it in terms of luminosity, but I will say that I don't think of myself as being a person who cares about men's fashion. But when I see what he says, I think, oh, you know what? I actually do care more than I thought. I mean, I thought I was indifferent to men's fashion.
No, so he sheds light on it and helps us to see.
Yeah. And I love it when somebody shows me that I care about something more than I thought I did. Or that I have the potential to care about something.
Right. That's a beautiful example. Thank you for thinking of that. Yeah.
All right. Well, the last question then, my traditional last question. Who are the writers that make you want to write? Or I know you've answered this question before on this podcast, but who are the writers right now who are making you want to write?
Well, always Flannery O'Connor. I just,
spirit. Yes.
I just, yes. And right now, so probably the current writer that I've been reading who she just writes so beautifully is Claire Keegan.
Oh yeah. I love her so much.
She's so good. And when I read people like that, and there's some others, I just read a book. Well, I'm going to write about this on my Substack, and I don't want to give it away, but I just, every once in a while I think, should I try my hand at creative writing? And then I read these good writers and I'm like, I think I'm just going to enjoy them because there's just no way I can do what they do. I don't know, but I love
Claire
good
Keegan
writers.
Makes it feel accessible. I mean, I know it's not easy to do what Claire Keegan does, but the way she writes, you think maybe I could do that. And
possibly.
Maybe one can't,
Like it's
but it seems so accessible, and so I just love her. I think she's so great.
She is. So yeah, I'm glad we have the same taste. It's good taste.
Yeah. All right. Well, Karen Swallow Prior, thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure. And thanks for writing this book. I think it's going to do a lot of people a lot of good.
Oh, thank you. I hope so, Jonathan.
The Habit Podcast is brought to you by The Rabbit Room, where art nourishes community and community nourishes art. You can support their work, including this podcast, by becoming a member. Visit rabbitroom.com/membership. Special thanks as well to Taylor Leonard for letting us use her song Diamonds as the theme music for the Habit Podcast. You can learn more about Taylor and follow her work at taylorleonard.com. The Habit Membership is a library of resources for writers by me, Jonathan Rogers. More importantly, The Habit is a hub of community where like-minded writers gather to discuss their work and give each other a little more courage. Find out more at thehabit.co.
If you've enjoyed this podcast episode, consider joining the Rabbit Room membership. Your membership helps sustain this community, funding everything from publishing and podcasts and theater productions to events and programs that support artists who create with a Christ-centered vision. We'd love to have you on board. Learn more at rabbitroom.com/member.